Thank you very much, and welcome to this panel discussion. So if it's okay with all the panel members, I'd love to make it conversational. I'll start by a small remark, and I think this must be true for all of you. When I was in my 10th standard, my father called me, and he was an ambitious man and said, Atul, I'm worried about your happiness. I said, okay, you should be. The only way to achieve happiness is to get into IIT. If you get into IIT, you'll be happy all your life. Why don't you work hard in your 11th and 12th? And if you get into IIT, everything else is sorted out in life. So I was a stupid young teenager. I fell for him. And I worked hard in my 11th and 12th, and I made it to IIT, luckily. I think many years later, and you either gray with your hair or with less hair, either way, you get wiser. I've realized that he might not have been right in the way he thought. I think what I'd like to decipher today is, does success lead to happiness? Or happiness leads to success? I think that's one topic I'd like to talk about. But the second thought I'd like to leave before I open it to the panel is a research done by Harvard University. So many of you might be aware of this, but they tracked 3 generations of successful people. They started off by what they call the Boston Brahmins. Students had gone to stiff upper lip Harvard University, and they tracked 3 generations of those guys. And then they picked up guys from the ghetto and tracked 3 generations of that. 60 years down the line, they came up with this beautiful research piece and said, who was successful? And the answer was very simple. People who'd been through a process of happiness, especially through family and community support, were way more successful than people who had actually been to Harvard or they'd actually gone out and done some amazing things in terms of work. So I believe happiness is very, very important. Over the years, I've also moved into spirituality, and I follow Yogananda Paramahansa. And my Guruji defined it a little differently. He said, happiness is a consequence, is temporary. It's about joy. But we won't talk about joy today because QS has still to move into spirituality. It's still in the lower aspects of self-actualization. But happiness definitely leads to success. At least that's my very big belief. And I'll start off this debate by asking 2 questions. One is, do you as panel members believe in this? But I think the more important thing is the why and the how. So if we believe that happiness is important, then okay, how do you go about achieving happiness with our students and our faculty and other stakeholders or members of the community? I think that's really the crux of this discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this question to the youngest member of the panel, which is you, Shrisha. I think you look very happy, you glow. So first tell us, the secret of this glow. Is this happiness or is this something else or is this L'Oreal? Sorry, I'm joking with you. But tell us, do you believe in this happiness thing? And if yes, how are you trying to implement happiness in implicit or explicit ways in your institutions? Over to you, Shrisha. 3 minutes, and then we'll sort of get into a dialogue.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Atul. I think, coming from me, definitely, for me, happiness definitely, comes with being among children and making sure that the experience that the children have in our schools is very meaningful, right? And happiness definitely leads to success. And by that, do we mean that, happiness for education, aims to serve, children who, or whatever makes children feel good? No, it could not be just that. It means happiness is beyond that, meaning that I came across a reading recently, and I feel that that resonates a lot with our institution as well and what we practice, which means that happiness is a byproduct of having done something challenging and worthwhile. And that is very important in life, and to develop as ultimately, as an education institution, we're all nurturing strengths, and this is where growth and learning happens. So making meaningful learning experiences for children, and maybe there are states where unhappiness maybe arises from the fact that children do not know what they're learning about, or what is that they care about, or most passionate about. So as educators, our role here is to scaffold and support and help them with possibilities, or help them to identify and discover what they're most passionate about, what do they care about, and help them develop the confidence and capabilities to actually pursue their passions, most importantly. And that is how, that leads to success and overall well-being.
Fantastic, so you believe with me. Okay, great, so let's move to Prabhat. So Prabhat, your students are capitalists, working, trying to be CEOs. They believe that we make the millions and the unicorns and they'll be happy. But what's your belief? Do you try to bring in happiness into them? But more importantly, do you measure happiness of your students? We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you. There's a lot to share on this topic, but we teach happiness. We have a course developed on happiness, and we offer a 3-credit course to our students. We also did some kind of survey at the end of the course every year, and we came to understand that their happiness actually enhanced quite a lot, at least in their perception. We do have measurement tools available. We do that, but as part of the course, we do a lot of the dream analysis for them, and there is subjective well-being we look at, and there are a lot of many other aspects of happiness that we look at. But to answer your question, I would like to quote Jane Austen. I'm tempted to quote many, but Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, that Mr. Darcy is actually addressing Elizabeth. Elizabeth is very sensible, looking for something else in life, not monetary things, but Darcy has a lot of money. Darcy wanted Elizabeth, right? So finally Darcy said, oh, Elizabeth, look, I understand that money cannot buy you happiness in life, but I can assure you that money can buy you everything that will bring you happiness. And look at that. And therefore, the problem is this. Problem is as follows, which Sterling has found with US data. So Sterling has found that the GDP of US economy has actually gone 3 times or 4 times in the last 30 years, 40 years down the line, in different waves of surveys that he has conducted. Econometric analysis and all, and he found that the average happiness of Americans have remained stagnant over a period of time. So that's the problem. And if your constitution preamble says that we are in the pursuit of happiness, so people are asking what happened to the happiness? And therefore chase for happiness, like the Gartner said, rise and fall of GDP. And Kennedy, in his presidential address, he talked about how GDP is an insufficient measure of happiness. So he said that GDP measures almost everything other than what makes our life worthwhile. For example, it doesn't talk about the strength of friendship. There is no place of the strength of friendship in GDP. It doesn't talk about the strength of family. It doesn't talk about the strength of poetry that we create, right? So, what makes life worthwhile is not included in GDP. It talks about everything other than that. And therefore, if you say that money is not important, I mean, that's euphoric to say it sometimes, how. But the question is that there is something called hedonic treadmill effect that all of us actually go through, which actually Martin Seligman has very rightly pointed out. He said, we chase good life. Of course, the first thing that comes to our mind is good life. So we talk to the business school students, they talk about good life. And I have done this exercise with many people. I asked them to list what is good life, what the good life is for them. The B school students will list good lives, something like as follows, that he would like to get a good job, this much of package, good car, good house, and all kind of worldly things, possessions, that the tragedy of life is that the good life is not a meaningful life. Actually, the happiness depends on how you create meaningful life. So you have to use good life as a vehicle to create meaningful life. The meaningful life would not come of its own. It has to ride on the good life. And therefore, to say that the money is not important is not correct, but also to say that the money is all that important is also not correct, right? That's how it
We'll
works.
come to poetry and money a little later, Prabhat. This is a long, long discussion. But I'd love to move this discussion to you, Pooja. Right? So, mass media, you are the ones who, the most, I would say, brutal in terms of analysis, right? So, how do your students think about it? How do the journalists think about it? I see a lot of these journalists with a bag and saying money is not important, going around in chappals and seeing success. But see, success and money and happiness are three different things. But I'd love to hear from you. Are they just too utopian by saying that, we see success by actually not having money, but now being very socialist, but might not be happy? So just decipher this for us.
Hello, everyone. So throughout the previous sessions and now, I was just jotting down a few things which I would like to share here before I answer that question briefly. Yale has a course about science of well-being. In the 300 years of their existence, last year, that became their most popular course. I also teach disability competencies to medical students in Delhi. And trust you me, the NEET cleared, stamped students, I must unfortunately tell here, are one of the unhappiest lot. One of the studies that I did for one of my mental health projects, 30% of Indian doctors live with depression. They are our most successful students, but they are not happy. Coming to journalists, they make a lot more money to buy shoes now, so everybody's not going around in chappals and jholas. And if there are chappals and jholas, they are very branded and very expensive. But yes, journalism, if you see the index and the various scales, so to say, India doesn't fare very well in the global happiness index overall. Our journalists do not perform very well on the global index for press freedom. So they are not definitely happy people. They are making money, let me tell you this. They have their faces splashed over big billboards and the sense of power that we can make and destroy dynasties, but they are not very happy people. And that is why, right from the beginning, as Shrisha rightly pointed out, when we are forcing that little child to not draw or paint and aim for the IIT, I think we need to move this parameter of whether happiness leads to success or should it lead to something, or can they both go hand in hand? And can each person or each child define for themselves what their happiness is?
Thank you. I think before we hand it over to other panelists, I have one question. When I have this debate with my father or my mother, they say that Indians are very happy. That's the general belief. Indians are happy people.
Yeah.
But the World Happiness Report talks about something very different. Is it because they have the wrong measures to measure happiness, do you believe? Or is it that Indians are unhappy people? What do you think?
Well, it is a little bit of both, I would say. Our core value systems and culture has a huge role to play here. I mentor a lot of helplines in Delhi, mental health helplines. And trust you me, during the pandemic, social media was splashed with pictures of couples together, families together, and our calls at helplines were going through the roof. I can't bear my husband for 1 hour, I'll kill him. I am sick and tired of my mother. So this sham of the great, happy Indian family, or what I call the great sacrificing Mother India complex that women live in India with, is not true. Domestic violence in India went through the roof during that period. Most of our child abuse is happening in families. Just because we don't talk about it and we post happy family pictures doesn't mean that our children are happy or we are happy families, one. Second, in India, somehow, culturally, we lay a lot of emphasis on how much we leave for the progeny in terms of property, money, whatever, reputation even. We do not care. My child could be a doctor, but my child could be popping in antidepressant pills every day. So what is my criteria of success? I think as parents, as educators, we need to ponder on this.
Thank you, Pooja. Let's go to the school side. And Robert, thank you for coming for this panel. You know, honestly, I know a little about you and what you're trying to do. So 1 minute on why you're in India and what you're trying to do. I'm assuming you're in India, you live in India. But if you don't, excuse my assumption. I have a question over here. I've always, and I say this quite bluntly, that, you know, students in India go through 15 years of educational abuse. Sorry, not in your institutions, but otherwise. And then they come to university. And then we believe we've got some magic and we create a happiness center somewhere in a university. And we believe that we can make them happy and successful. Sorry, I'm being probably dramatic over here. But is there a need to change school education? I'm assuming that you're into school education. So can we fundamentally change school education in India? And what could be the role of universities, because they're higher education leaders here? What is our role in terms of influencing that policy and strategy? So Robert, over to you.
Well, that's a lot for a minute.
Well, take three.
Take three. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's great to be here. Thank you to everybody for inviting me. My name's Robert Champion. I'm the secondary principal at Trio World Academy in Bangalore. So yes, I do live in India. I've been here very luckily for the last year or so. My experience is as an international educator in secondary schools. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, and I've been in international education for 15 of those 20 years, from my earliest days in the UK to Peru, to Jordan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka. Now there's an unhappy country for you. And most recently, Malaysia. And so all around this journey that I've taken, finding out, learning, because we're all learners, whether we're students or whether we're principals like myself, is what makes a school tick, what makes a school improve, and at the essence of that, in my journey, is that one word, happiness. Now we can debate what happiness means, and by my definition of it is the contentment that facilitates resilience. It is not a fake happiness. If any of you have been unlucky enough to go to the United States, you will know all about fake happiness. Hello, have a nice day, how are you? As an Englishman who doesn't like outward displays of emotion, it's one of the worst countries in the world for me. But true happiness, which enables a resilience in students, is central, I think, to the culture of a dynamic and successful international school, because it's the foundation. You know, when we first go into education, we learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? Happiness is the most important unenunciated part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If a student is miserable, to try and use a Jane Eyre sort of reference, it's a bit like having Mrs. Rochester up in the closet upstairs coming down and trying to set fire to your future. Students need to be able to feel comfortable within themselves. Because if they're not comfortable within themselves, they're not going to be able to take risks. And if they're not going to take risks, they are not going to learn. They might learn by rote, by copying things down, but the independent learning that universities are looking for, they won't be able to do. So for me, and I realize I'm running out of time, so I need to summate, happiness is vital in providing students with the platform, the foundation that enables them to go forth and do what they want to do. Because at the end of the day, all of us, whether we're in secondary education or higher education, we're trying to facilitate our students to reach their dreams.
Wow, thank you, Robert. Quota, and I'm going to come to you. So this is my favorite topic nowadays. I talk about quota, and I talk about innovation. I think quota is killing innovation in India. So the most productive years of a child, 11th and 12th, or 10th probably, nowadays 8th standard on. Probably I've heard someone doing 6th standard JE coaching. Anyway, so we're killing innovation in students because of parental pressure. Everyone wants their child to go to IIT or other institutions. So I have two questions for you over here, Abhishek. First is, when it comes to happiness of students, is it about giving happiness to students in schools or probably educating the parents? Which is more important? And just a second, hold a minute, please. I think the second question I have, which is relevant to all of us, because many of us as leaders in higher education, we, I think, come from private universities. What should be our role in elevating, I think, the trust with students and parents so that they make us also as aspirational? Because IITs are aspirational and students are killing themselves. So what can we do as institutions to up that confidence with parents? But what is more important, parents' happiness and their thinking, or students?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Excellent question, without a doubt. I'll speak in the perspective of school education, because that is, at that point, kids are smaller and it's the parents who take all the decisions. One of the biggest industry in this country is tuition industry.
Byju's now.
Yes. And so what happens is, let's try to understand, why do parents push children to go for IIT or let's say medical in education? They don't care about IIT. Reality is that they care a place where more or less guarantees good future for their children. Let's understand, money and happiness are not against each other. If you have money, you may not be happy. But if you don't have money, certainly you will not be happy. This is the reality. We should understand that. So in that case, parents' learning is more important, because they don't understand the reason why they are pushing their kid. A lot of hearsay is there based on which they take their decisions. This uncle is saying, this person is saying, my office guy is doing it. It's important we educate the parents very clearly that as a country now, if you look, there are multiple opportunities that have come up. You would see a lot of kids going for cricket coaching. That's because IPL has come. They see a future. Even if the boy is able to qualify for a Ranji Trophy, I think he has a fantastic future. Likewise, there are multitude of opportunities available where a child can have a decent future, which is very important. And as educators and as private universities, as you were saying, if we are able to put across this point, that see now even stand-up comedy has excellent opportunity if you are able to do well. Likewise, there are multitude of scopes available where new courses have come up, new career opportunities have come up. If we are able to focus on that, we are able to convince the parents that yes, do not worry, if the child is going into this, he will be happier. He will be successful. Then they will be able to understand. Because happiness varies from person to person. But end of the day, parents will see, if my child is able to live a decent life, they will consider him or her to be happy. Not realizing that So we spend more than 50 to 60% of our active life in the profession that we are working. So which is a huge, huge amount of time. And if you're stuck in a profession which you don't like, and then God help you. It is as simple as that.
So you hit the nail on the head, Abhishek. Create role models of success. I think that's what a beautiful way to, I think, articulate the thoughts. Well-being. I think that's the topic, happiness and well-being. And let me try to connect the dots. You know, as I dream about education, and I'm a dreamer, and I think about Shoolini, I have a very different dream about what a university would be. To me, education is about inspiration. I believe a small spark can change lives. So to me, a great institution should have waterfalls, should have trees, should have parks, should have, you know, great architectural buildings, culture flowing in. And that's what creates, and well-being sort of flowing in, that's what creates sort of happiness and joy, and then creates success in the process. I think the challenge also starts about well-being of young human beings or young children. And I'll come to you, Shrisha. Sometimes I've seen sloppy students, especially with COVID coming in. Students are all the time on their mobile. They're not playing around, etc. So what are you doing around you know, creating well-being of your students, both mental and physical? And how important is that in both school and university education, according to you?
Well, thank you very much for that question. You know, I can relate to what you were, you know, telling about an ideal university as well. I had an education experience like that, actually. I did my undergraduation in University of British Columbia, and it had one of the best, you know, architectures and best educational experience one could, you know, ask for. And when we look back into you know, school education and how we can create well-being as an important you know, aspect with young children especially, you know, a lot of learning actually you know, happens in a natural way, in a seamless way, and that should be encouraged along with, you know, academic you know, subject knowledge that we're looking for, let it be chemistry, mathematics, you know, language. I think a lot of times well-being becomes a secondary aspect, and so there should be a lot of time you know, put together to inculcate a well-being aspect added into the curriculum, basically. And so as part of our schools, we're happy that, you know, we've evolved so much in the sense that we've been able to provide an experience that is holistic for children, not just focus on academics, but look at their overall mental health, look at their overall well-being, not just the students, but the faculty members, the entire, you know, fraternity. So that is very important to create a culture that you know, is very much like a family, and that children have the confidence and you know, ability to converse with anyone around them and provide you know, creativity, curiosity, and all of these aspects that the children can, you know, voice out confidently.
So you've spoken about family. I think we spoke about this Harvard study. So building a family, I think that's great.
Yes.
Risk-taking, being fearless in the thoughts. I think these are the type of things we're talking about. Thank you. Wonderful thoughts, Shrisha. We'll switch to university education. Die-hard capitalists studying in Jaipuria that you're creating. You spoke about curriculum. You said that you have a course on happiness. So I have a conflict over here, Prabhat. When people ask me, how much did you learn in your classroom, I jokingly say, now you can interpret it either way, whatever I remember is not from the classroom. Whatever I remember is from outside the classroom. And I'm not joking, and I'm a reasonably successful person. Does happiness be taught? Should we really have a school of happiness? Or should we think about creating culture inside the institution where things flow? And I'm going to quote Churchill over here, over here. So after the Second World War, there was a debate in the British Parliament. And the debate was, what do we do now? And Churchill gave a very famous speech, and his speech was, put the gardens in place. Because gardens create happiness, create inspiration. So my question to you is, should us as educational institutions spend more time bringing curriculum or happiness curriculum, or should we just bring in that environment of fearlessness, happiness into our student body where there are no exams, they believe that they go out and take risks and just be happy and conquer the world?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite questions. I start, making my audience understand this question first, and then we can proceed anywhere. So,
okay, probably I was not articulate enough.
Answer to that question is both.
Okay.
You need to put in place things around. So we have adopted a model, and I'm just correlating it with what we are doing so the audience can understand it better. So we have put in place, like we call it mandalas, 4 mandalas we have picked up from Sanskrit, Buddhist mandalas, and we put it in the campus. So the campus is oriented to build happy culture or happy environment, ecosystem over there. So the ecosystem that you were talking is very important, very, very important. And as you rightly said, how you and I have learned in our life is about more than 70%, that's the research-supported data I'm telling you, more than 70% outside the classroom and 30% inside the classroom. So when you are saying this, I totally agree with you. Sometimes, it's a reality. So, how we allocate time is just the other way around. We put 70% inside the classroom or hardly 30% outside the classroom. And therefore, outside the classroom, what happens in the cafeteria is more important than what happens in the classroom. And therefore, if you visit my cafeteria, it's a happy place. So it has actually combined books, food, play, whatnot. I mean, we have a book menu in the cafeteria, apart from the food menu. So that's the kind of, policy. Now, coming to the curriculum, can happiness be taught? Yeah, of course it can be. It should be. So the experimentations have suggested, many articles have been published in journals which says that 2 to 3 weeks of intervention, happiness intervention programs can increase happiness by about 30% in your life. And that is proven fact. So why it is so proven? Because neuroscience is supporting this. The neuroscience is saying that happiness is measurable. And it talks about the neuroplasticity. So it says your mind is wired on a certain way, and that's why you're not happy. So, one of the factors, I'll just give you one factor to understand that. The distractibility, right, or attention deficit, we call it. So Richard Davidson asked his audience, where is your mind when you're sitting in the hall and listening to me? 61% of his audience said that, their mind is not here. The mind is traveling somewhere else. They are sitting in the hall where their mind is traveling. Look at this attention deficit among students. It's very high, 70%, 80%. And the data suggests that 88% of Indians are suffering from anxiety. And he's saying that anxiety is the root cause of the failure of well-being. So how can anxiety be controlled? How can attention deficit be controlled? There is a framework that we have created out of all the studies and scientific notions behind it. I can talk at length about it, but I'm just cutting short the story. So it's called the framework of balancing your life. You need to balance your life. It's a failure to balance the life which actually causes problem. And the fulcrum of life is actually like this. So you have the 4 axes. One is called the body, and then you have the mind, then you have the heart, and then you have the soul. We understand our body very well. We know the value of exercise. The 269 lives which the Harvard study has actually tracked, one of the conclusions was that the childhood factors do not matter when they age, but in the mid-age, people who actually adopted exercising for 30 minutes or 1 hour has actually fared well on the life satisfaction when they aged and they become 70. That's one of the conclusions of that study you're quoting. So that is very important. So we understand body. We understand mind to some extent. Stoic attitude, how we control our emotions, how we control our judgment. So these are the things. We also understand to some extent our heart, but we do not understand our soul. I'll just give you one example of how soul is important for your happiness. So I have a friend, doctor, and he's a very successful doctor. He has everything in life that a doctor can aspire for. And I have another friend, doctor, and both of them are treating diabetics, right? The second doctor is also a very successful doctor. When I met the second friend of mine, he told me that he has kept some goal in his life, that the vicinity where he's living, the neighborhood where he's living, he would like to see that in the next 5 years, there will be not a single case of diabetes. That's the aim that he has kept for his life. Or that's the objective he has kept for his life. Both are successful. Both have everything in life, right? So I'm wondering, if both my friend doctors will become 70, 80, and they will look back their life and ask this question, are we happy with the life? Who is going to be having a better answer that he's satisfied and happy with it? Is the second one. He understood his soul, right? So there are many ways that the soul can be actually nurtured. And this is very important that we create me time for the students. We create, make them understand the value of friends, right? We call it 2 a.m. friends. There are mindfulness exercises, so we have the well-being room created where anyone can walk in and sit and, just be there of their own and come back. So how you create those me time for the students, how you actually look at those aspects built into the whole serenity that you have actually created is more important, and it works, believe me.
Thank you, Prabhat. I think you're going to... Soul, what a beautiful topic. And we can talk about hours on soul. I'm going to come to you, Pooja. And your challenge is going to be to answer my question in 2 minutes. And you're going to talk about the soul, okay?
Okay.
So let me
Bring it on.
put this question on you. 3 questions for you. 2 minutes.
Great.
You spoke about purpose.
Yeah.
And we all know that purpose is very, very important to be happy. First question, can we bring our students, can we give a purpose to them when they are in university? Especially, I think, school children, it's too young.
Yeah.
But can we bring purpose? That's one. Prabhat spoke about a lot about science, science of happiness. Science more important or yoga spirituality more important?
Okay.
Should we move the Western way of mindfulness, or should we just adopt what our gurus have said over the years? And lastly, my question is, sometimes when you think about happiness, we forget about faculty. We talk a lot about students. How do we bring happiness into our faculty, and how do we bring, some of these issues about purpose and mindfulness into faculty? So 3 questions, 3 minutes.
Great. I'll answer all the 3 questions together in one answer. Let's see if I can do it. So we talked about purpose. We talked about which is the better way to do it. The Western way. I am myself a mindfulness trainer, so I could be biased. And also the third part, that we forget faculty. I think for everybody, whatever you're doing in life, whether you're teaching, whether you're a parent, whether you are any other stakeholder, you own an institution, or you are a child, there are 3 things, I think, which will answer all 3 of these. Purpose, as well as which way is better, and third one, the role of the people who are actually delivering education. One is inclusivity. Are we inclusive in our education? How many institutions are queer or LGBTQI friendly in India? How many institutions are disability friendly in India? Do we employ people, teachers, staff members with disability? Do we have only one kind of conversations? I say this often, I'm also a professional translator. All these academic conversations are happening only in Shuddh Angrezi. Second thing, autonomy. So as Abhishek pointed out, parents taking all the decisions for children. We glorify that. Or teachers making all the decisions. Or management making all the decisions. So everybody must have some amount of autonomy in the system to make them happy. The 3-year-old child can also decide whether they like music more or applied mathematics more. And similarly, a faculty member can and should be allowed to decide whether they should take this class with a PPT and blah blah and 10 things, or just outside in the garden and have a conversation. And third point, voice. Does anybody and everybody in the system have a voice there? Does the child get to say what they want? Is the last person in the line in your institution, who could be anyone, who could be a janitor, who could be a server, who could be a gatekeeper, who could be a guard on your main gate, does he have a say in the system? Does that person have a voice? Do you care what are his work conditions? Do you care about his mental health? Do you care if he has thought about suicide thrice in the last month? So voice is very important. And that's why I feel that when we talk about happiness, we need to re-examine a lot of other institutions other than educational institutions in our systems. Families, marriages, organizational culture, gender, class, religion, and all of these intersections can only probably define then, are we delivering happiness or not?
Thank you, Pooja. You've taken the discussion to very different levels. I'm going to bring it back to practicality, and I'm going to do a rapid fire over here for all of us. Are you ready? 30 seconds. Right, Robert?
I'm right.
Because otherwise Ashwin is going to kick me out of the room. So, three things, three practical things that you're doing in your set of schools to bring happiness, joy, purpose, whatever you call it, into your student community. Quickly, three things.
The most one, and it's the most significant thing that you can do in any institution, and I do it for staff well-being as well as for student well-being. Every single one of my students, every single day, gets asked, "How are you?" Because it shows that somebody cares for them. And they might not get that at home, they might not get that from family, they might not get that from friends, but they will get that in my school because we care about our students. And that's also the case for our staff. How many members of staff get asked, "How are you today?"
So that's
And
the
actually
first one. The
listen.
second one.
The second one, smile. When I was first started teaching, I was told by the old hands in the staff room, "Do not smile until December." No, smile, welcome. Be at the gate in the morning, say hello, how are you? But to welcome people in there when they come in. Okay, so that's number two, is smile. Number three, there's got to be a follow-up. If somebody's not smiling, if somebody's not okay, you follow that up. You might not do that yourself, but you know the people, the form teacher, the homeroom teacher, the high school counselor, who can follow it up. So ask, show that you care, ask how they are, smile, follow up.
Wow. You know, talking about smiling, this is for all the beautiful ladies here. Do you know a smiling releases oxytocin, which is also good for the skin? By the way. Okay, three things, Abhishek. Three things, practical things, 30 seconds.
First, psychological safety to the staff. They have that to provide that comfort that they can question anybody in the institution. I'm the chairman, they can still come to me and say, "Sir, you have a brilliant idea, but I don't think it will work." This is the better way we can do that. It is tough initially because managements always talk nice things, but when it takes time for the staff to trust you, and for that you should ensure that your espoused and enacted norms are same. So, but over a period of time, now they have understood, and it comes to them. They come and ask, and as Robert said, yes, asking how are you, that is very important. Whenever you talk, just find out whenever anybody comes to meet you, and it's
Empathy,
across
right?
empathy, yes, and give a open hearing to people when they have any issue. Give them time to understand what challenges they have, because they have families, and families have problems inherently in them. So when they ask people to listen to them and not judge them, that is very important. And finally, one more thing, accept as people they are. That is very important. So that you get that confidence that, okay, you may be in a different little, but that is all right. We still value you, because we teach one very important thing, to take the entire package. We cannot have, let's say, me with only good things. I will have good and bad both. and like everybody else will be there. Nobody is perfect. While we push for perfections, accept failure as part, and in all departmental meetings, HODs must share one thing that they tried and it did not work out. One failure they must share so that people get confidence to do well and learn that it is all right to fail. We will do better next time.
Thank you, Abhishek. 3 things for you, Shrisha. 3 things that you are trying to do to bring happiness and joy and well-being into
Well-
the students or the faculty.
Yeah, I think most of it is already being covered by Mr. Robert and Mr. Abhishek. But if I would, put it out differently, I think one thing is the environment they are in. So to design the environment, a lot of us don't think about how a learning environment should be designed to support well-being, support collaborative learning experience for children. So let's get out of factory-based learning and traditional or passive learning experience to active learning, and that provides a lot of meaningful and happy experience for children in schools, and that is something that we have inculcated. And like I mentioned before, providing a family-like culture in school. That is very important for them. Even if they do not have such an experience back at home, it is important for us as educators and the entire staff and the school ecosystem should provide that experience. for them.
Family, third one.
Yeah, third one. Well, I think connecting with nature, that is very important.
Nature,
as
wonderful.
well. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhat, you have only 30 seconds, okay?
13
3
seconds left.
things.
So, yeah. So I'll start with couplet. So pardon if Robert, is not
I
able to
thought you
understand.
were a management professor,
Oh,
not a
yeah,
literature
I'm
professor.
also a happiness guru. वह यकीनन किसी मासूम का कातिल होगा. वह यकीनन किसी मासूम का कातिल होगा. हमने उस शख्स को हंसते हुए कम देखा है.
क्या
So
बात?
you need to wear happiness. That's very important. 3 things. 1, eat together. So our students will eat together, our faculty will eat together, our staff will eat together, and the director will eat with them. So that's how
Wow.
we do. That's number 1. Number 2, hobby, pursue hobby. Everybody has to follow a hobby. And if you don't follow a hobby, bring it back. You must be having a hobby when you were in the school, you were in the college, and you forgot that, right? Don't do that. Bring that back in your life, here, now, and immediately. That's a very important thing. So it's mandatory for everybody to follow a hobby, and we give them platform, a lot of platforms in the evening. We call it Life After 6 program. So Life After 6 program is about when the classes are over, then you have the hobby classes all around. So people actually get engaged till 7, 8 in the evening. That's another. Third, ask for more work. I mean, that's very interesting. So if somebody giving you more work, should you be happy or should you be sad? I'll say you should be very happy because it's your engagement that makes you happy. It's your non-engagement that actually pushes towards unhappiness. So engagement is very, very important and critical factor. And therefore, to students, if they understand that how engagement actually brings about happiness in their life, they will be doing fairly well in their life all through, right? And finally, if you allow me, the life is not as we think it about, right? It has ups and downs, and therefore 2 lines to end with, right? मुझे प्यार करना नहीं आता और तुम्हें प्यार के सिवा कुछ नहीं आता. मुझे प्यार करना नहीं आता और तुझे प्यार के सिवा कुछ नहीं आता और जिंदगी जीने के 2 ही तरीके हैं मेरे दोस्त, एक तुम्हें नहीं आता, एक मुझे नहीं आता. So that's how this is what life is.
I think I'm a good moderator. I got poetry out of him, right? I'm going to reply to your poetry towards the end with poetry, okay? That's my promise to you. So, Pooja, 3 things that are important to you, practical things, 30 seconds.
Yeah. So at IIMM Delhi, we are an inclusive campus, whether it is about gender identities or disability, and this is for faculty, students, everybody. Autonomy and voice, so even the last person in the queue can say what they want and have a voice. And third and very important thing, it is okay not to be okay. So there can be tough days, there can be tough phases, and it's all right. It's all right to not do well in an entrance exam. It's all right to not get that internship. It's all right to not get this job and try for the next. So it's okay to not be okay. And because you have inspired couplets, so I will just say one. कि घर से मस्जिद है बहुत दूर, चलो यूं करिए किसी रोते हुए बच्चे को हंसा जाए.
Kya baat, kya baat. So we've had a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I've got 2 minutes to sum it up. And I asked this question very, very intentionally, that what makes students happy, faculty happy? I think when Sachin was giving me some questions to ask, he was talking about curriculum and infrastructure and big scientific things. But when we started summarizing this, it came down to very simple things. How do you do? How do you eat together? And a bit of poetry that made us all smile and laugh. And I think that's the beauty of happiness. My belief is it's simple things that create happiness, but very, very difficult to implement. And it's all about culture. It's all about how do you create that ecosystem. And it cannot be created by money. So I'm going to answer the question which I asked. And sir, you said that money is important. So मैं थोड़ा सा contest करूँगा. My belief is, and that's the way I live my life, the two things apart from all that you said, and I agree with it, which are very, very important to everyone for success, for happiness. The first is love. Do we love each other? Do we love the environment? Do we love the people around us? Do we love the work we do? And that can move mountains. Love can move mountains, and you don't need money for love, sir. You need purpose for love. That's the first one. I think the second is belief. Belief about your purpose can change things. इतनी शिद्दत से तुम्हें पाने की कोशिश की है कि हर जर्रे ने हमें मिलाने की साजिश की है. किसी भी चीज़ को दिल जान से चाहो तो पूरी कायनात उसको आपसे मिलाने में लग जाती है, और ये सच है. चाहे वो हैप्पीनेस है, चाहे वो आपका पर्पस है, whatever it is. So my two thoughts before I part are going to be, let's bring all that we said to our students, and let's bring love into their lives and belief into their lives. I think once that happens, we will all become world leaders. And I think all of us sitting in this room are going to become top 200 universities in QS very soon. Thank you very much and wish you all good luck. A great panel, and I really, really thank all of you.
Thank you to Atul. I think amazing session. He is a fantastic moderator, and getting into IT, yes, is a happiness for some.
I can only tell you, sir, I've never been happier in my life. Teaching is my purpose. Thank you.